Get ready, anglers, from Toledo Bend to the Texas coast and beyond. The bite is hot. Between largemouth crappies, stripers, redfish, and trout, every region's firing, Jim.
That's right, Bree. We got some big bass, big bites, plenty of action coming for you guys on the Texas Insider Fishing Report, which starts now.
Welcome to the Texas Insider Fishing Report. Presented by Yamaha.
Forrest.
Welcome back to week 2 of the Texas Insider Fishing Report. I'm Bree Gabrielle, and we're reeling in the fun with a familiar face, Captain Jim Ross, filling in for Rick this week. Jim, are you ready to talk some Texas fishing or what? I
am ready, because those guys out there have got a huge bite going on, and all the regions right now are really firing off like we started the show with, and it's going to be this is going to be a great show for you guys and gals to get out and go catch some fish this weekend.
Exactly. Well, we're glad you're back with us. And speaking of ready, Dave Farrell is holding it down at the Parts View workbench. Dave, what you got cooking this week for us?
Well, you know, Chad Kinney's going to be talking about some yellowfin tuna today, so that's what we're going to talk about. There's some early yellowfin tuna out there, and when the weather gets nice and you can make it out there, we're going to show you how to catch some of them.
I love the taste of that. All right, let's start in the Project's Middle Coast region with fun trout action on top waters and plastics, plus keeping some red steady at the jetty with Captain Bink Grimes. Let's get to it, Bink.
All right, it's been a grind at times, but anytime we get a break in the wind, we've been catching some really healthy trout in East Matagorda Bay. Mostly been on the west end, so since most of the wind has had a westerly factor, that allows the water, keeps the fishable clarity to it. Gulp shrimp under mid-coast popping corks has been best bets. Long drifts covering lots of ground, concentrating on consistent locales when the major and minor bite goes off has been the ticket. We've got a forthcoming full moon, so we really watch the moon to predict the bite. Trout are beginning to slick on the shorelines in the morning in West Matagorda Bay. Slicking is the term we use when fish are feeding, and the oil from the bait fish they're consuming puts a sheen on the water, much like when you drop a oil on the water, it hits the water. It just gives their location away. We like it when they get on those oily bait fish. In Rockport, the incoming tide's been good for waders around Mud Island, Allen's Bight, Super Flat. Some are throwing small mirror topwaters, but most are tossing corky, soft dines, and bass assassins. Tides dropped this week to below normal because we've just had a front come through, throwing northwest winds at us and high pressure. It's forced redfish off the shoreline, and what's done to the trout, the same thing. We're catching them out in the middle over shell and mud. Port O'Connor anglers have hid from the wind in a maze of marshes along the south shoreline of Espricha Santo Bay and San Antonio Bay. Some are wading the back legs with small topwaters, and some are throwing bass assassin sea shad. Others are taking bait buckets full of shrimp and tossing corks off the shell points and getting their fish that way. Redfish action in Matagorda, most of the boaters are hitting points and structures along the south shoreline with live shrimp. They stop for 5 minutes. If they don't get a bite, they move. One here, one there. They just keep moving. Others are camping on mud flats and waiting for the reds to come to them. Toss a chunk of fresh mullets at the rod and rack and wait for the thump. It takes patience, but at the end of the day, you have a pretty good box of reds. Bull reds are all over the beaches and jetties. Guys on foot have been tossing big chunks of crab and mullet in the first gut on the high tide on the beach, and then jetty anglers have worked the ocean side on the incoming and the channel side on the outgoing. There's a lot of redfish on the edge of the ICW from Sargent to Matagorda. Live shrimp's been the ticket for anglers working a trolling motor along the drop-off. Don't be afraid to work this off-color water. Redfish are sight casters and scent feeders. Old pros peel some of the shell off the shrimp and get more scent when the water is off-color, and it seems to help the bite. Work the same waters, and you probably will come in contact with a lot of black drum as well. They're hanging on a lot of that shell. There's a photo there. It's Dr. Joe Cochran. He caught that 9-pound redfish while tossing the new Gulp Turbo shrimp under a mid-coast popping cork. It was a good one. Offshore, Matagorda guys, Michael Quebeca said there should be more Kobe and triple tail showing up beneath large rafts of seaweed. Rough conditions on the big pond had kept a lot of big boats inside the jetty, but on days after fronts, he's been getting out there and working swordfish as well, about 90 miles out. He caught a trio of healthy sword this week. He's been drifting the hilltops. So, things are picking up out on the big pond. That's another good week in the Prospect Smokehouse Middle Coast region. It's springtime, so the wind's going to blow. Use the wind to be your friend. keep playing it cool with catch and release. And if you get a chance, try one of those Project Smokehouse ribeyes after a day on the water. They're pretty good. I eat them very often.
I'm ready to start one right now, Bink. Hey, thanks, buddy. I'm going to take your Mirror Lure hotspots for the Middle Coast region from here. Captain Bink says Rockport trout are good along the St. Joe Island, and small topwaters and plastics are hitting. There is what they're hitting on the incoming tide. Port O'Connor redfish are steady at the jetty on shrimp and crabs. Waders have found good schools of reds in the back lakes on bass assassins and gulps, Bree.
All right, well, let's check in with the Startron Middle Fresh region, where Toledo Bend is on fire with the crappie catches and so much more. Take us into our exciting weekend, Matt.
All right, Bree, I'll sure do it. We're going to start out with the largemouth bass this week, like I always do, and we're going to start out right here on my home lake at Toledo Bend. We're talking about a lot of lake level fluctuations lately on a lot of the Middle Fresh region lakes. So that's really the key this week is staying ahead of those water level fluctuations. Right now, Toledo is holding around 171, and it's been falling just as of this last couple of days. They've got both generators running at the dam 24 hours a day, so there's a fair amount of current right now as well, which changes how the fish set up. The water temperature is around 65 to 70 degrees. We've had some cold weather this past week, but it's getting warm back up now. Most of the bass are done spawning, but you can still find a few in all stages of the spawn. And on the far south end of the lake, there's going to be more that are going to pull up and spawn during this full moon we've got this weekend. They're going to be in the protected areas where the current is less, so look for those protected pockets. And then in the middle and north sections of the lake, there's going to be, you've got most of those fish have already spawned, and so the shad spawn is going to be starting now. And those post-spawn bass love feeding on those shad that are moving into spawn, those bait fish. So the productive depth range has been about 3 to 12 feet of water throughout the whole lake. And that takes into account the ones that are spawning and the post-spawners. The ones that spawn later like this tend to do it slightly deeper instead of right on the bank, especially when the water level is falling. They don't like to get up there too close to the shore because they don't want their nest to go dry. A wide variety of baits have been productive, from a Carolina rig being my number one with a shad bait on it, to a Texas rig and a drop shot. A moving bait that's been working well has been a jerk bait. That Berkeley Stunna has been great. Been using several shad colors, just experiment with the different shad colors and see which one's working best on a given day. Been mixing it up with the top water a little bit as well. If they occasionally come up schooling on those shad that are moving into spawn, so have that top water ready. And I'm going to show you a photo of one of those beautiful Toledo Bend 10-pounders right here. We got Mr. Blake Hernandez with a real nice Toledo Bend 10-pounder he caught recently. Beautiful fish there.
Absolutely.
All right, now let's jump over to Sam Rayburn. The water level there has been coming up again. It's above pool level. It's about a foot almost above pool level. So a lot of those fish have moved back up closer to the bank. The water temperature is holding close to 70 in most areas. Lots of bass being caught around the bank. That rising water has really pushed them up there. Most of the ones around the bank, though, are going to be your smaller fish, but it makes for some great numbers. Swim baits, swim jigs, and spinner baits are all working, mostly white colors. I like that spinner bait if it's cloudy or windy, and then the swim jig on the brighter days when it's not as windy. For the bigger fish, look out on the flats and the points near the mouth of the spawning areas in about 5 to 15 foot of water. Carolina rigged and crankbaits are always going to be the go-to on Rayburn for that, especially with there being a lack of grass in Rayburn. Those two baits really shine. All right, now let's move over to Lake Granbury. Mr. Thurman Selman there with Bass Specialty Guide Service says that the water level is almost full, and it's very clear right now. He says the water temps have warmed up to 70 in the afternoons. The bass are spawning heavily there now, so Bass Assassin Fat Jobs, rigged weightless, wacky, or Texas style are working good. Lipless crankbaits are also working good for those fish that are moving in and out of those spawning areas. All right, now going over to Whitney. Mr. Thurman's keeping us informed there as well. He says the water level is about 4 inches over pool level there, but the bass are still a little bit deeper, and the best area has been around the state park. He says those Bass Assassin soft plastics are good there too, but they're using the weighted stuff like Texas and Carolina rigs to catch them outside those spawning areas. All right, now switching it over to crappie. Toledo Bend bite. The crappie bite has really gotten good here lately. More and more fish are setting up in that 10 to 20 foot of water as they finish spawning and move back out. The bite's good during the day and at night time right now. They're being caught on jigs and minnows under a cork around all types of cover during the day. And then at night, bridges and docks have been the best around the lights with the same baits. And I got one more photo for you there of Miss Michelle with some big crappie she caught with my dad this week.
Very nice. Well,
Perfect.
tell us about Sam
All right, now
quickly
real
on the
quick,
white
check
bass.
on Rayburn. Crappie hanging shallower there this week. It's a great time to do some wade fishing over there on Rayburn. They're wading around those stumps and bushes with jigs mostly, and some minnows too. But jigs are kind of dominating as they wade around. They don't have to carry a bait bucket, and they can drop that jig down by a stump. All right, now last but not least, the white bass. Once again at Sam Rayburn, white bass are setting up on the points. Really fun way to catch them over there. Use those jigging spoons, get them on the points. And then at Lake Granbury, Mr. Thurman says the white bass are being caught near De Cordova and near the tin top as well in about 10 to 20 feet of water. And then there's some stripers hanging with them too. So once again, use those spoons and then the shad for the stripers.
Well, thanks a lot, Matt. That's a complete report. We're going to take your road and marine hotspots for the middle fresh region from here. Matt says,
Let's see, what does Matt say? All right, go ahead.
the
there it is.
largemouth bass are in all phases of the spawn, and they're biting a wide variety of baits, so you can fish your strengths right now. Crappie are also in all phases during the spawn. Toledo Bend is a hot spot for them right now in 10 to 20 feet of water. White bass are hot on Sam Rayburn and Granbury, biting those spoons like he just finished a report with.
So much to cover. All right, the lower coast region's coming up, and there's plenty of action from inshore drum and trout to offshore heavy hitters. But first, Steve's at the Parts View workbench for rigs and techniques. Dave, what are we doing?
Well, we've done the bass, and now we're going offshore. We're going to be talking about catching some big yellowfin tunas.
Sounds good
Maybe
to
even
me.
some little yellowfin tunas too.
Little
but
ones taste good.
Little ones make good baits for marlins.
They do. We'll be back.
The Texas Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. Ameritrail. Load, launch, relax. Fenwick. Feel everything. Bahio. Blue light blocking, radically clear polarized fishing sunglasses. Sportsman's Adventures with Captain Rick Murphy. Fishing for adventure. Berkeley. Your fish, our science. Prosec Smoked Meats. Fuel your day the Texas way. And Skeeter Performance Fishing Boats. Eat, sleep, fish.
And we're back at the rigs and techniques at the Parts View workbench. Dave,
Yes,
you
sir.
have got an entire plethora of things
That's
here.
what you could call it. That's for sure. It's a wide range of stuff.
So tuna really aren't as picky as people think if they'll eat all of these things.
Well, no, they can be kind of picky sometimes, but it's generally not. It doesn't really have to do with what you have out there. It's about how big the stuff is. But first off, when you're to try to find, the ocean is 90% empty.
Oh yeah.
So there's a lot of big empty out of there, and Texas is lucky because they have those oil rigs and the drill ships, and which create their own ecosystem out there in deep water. And when you have that kind of thing out there, it attracts bait. And then when the bait comes, the tunas come, and then the marlins come. So, we're talking about tuna today, but that's the whole little ecosystem that comes up, usually during the summer, but right about now, if you can get out, before, if the wind dies down and you can get out there, it's a really good time because nobody's been harassing them all summer yet. They're more apt to eat now.
They're
because
unmolested.
They're unmolested,
Yeah.
correct. So, like I was saying before, tuna are very size oriented. If you're trolling along and you see a bunch of big tunas busting and you can't see what they're eating, you don't see little baits jumping or flying fish or something, they're usually eating stuff that's real little. Some of this stuff I've got
Little
up here.
teeny tiny stuff like this.
Yeah, like these. These are a great way to get a bite out of a big tuna fish. We call these kings, and sometimes they'll put them in front of a bait for kingfish or whatnot. But if you put a nice an egg weight up inside there, however big you can squeeze in there to keep that thing in the water, and you troll that, about 6 or 8 knots.
And you put it on a fairly beefy little bait hook, like a live bait
Well,
hook.
that's the Trocar Live Bait HD, which is made to, it does not bend. Even that short shank little hook, it's perfect for putting in that bait because the tuna fish can't see it. Tuna have very, very good eyesight. Not only can they detect, tackle sometimes, but they're one of the few fish that really have a really great full spectrum color vision.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
Okay.
So, if you can go as fast as you can go, it kind of keeps them from getting a good eyeball on it. You know what I mean?
So here's the trick now. You're pulling very small baits that are relatively light in weight compared to a bigger lure like this.
Right.
How do you keep this in the water?
Well, you got to sometimes you just got to keep shoving weights up there, up that little skirt.
Maybe stack one or two behind the first one?
Correct.
Okay.
Until you can get it to stay in the water. Because
Okay.
it really doesn't do you any good if it's not in the water. It has to be moving in the water. And this is a good example of a chase bait where you have a little thing in the front and a bigger thing in the back. This is a great way to target them, because if you've got smaller things out that they're eating, they'll go for the smaller one. And if there's some bigger tunas out there, they'll go ahead and smash that one in the back. And you can still catch. Those are jaw lures, actually, by the way. So those are a really good thing.
Now, if you've got some toothy critters around, I see you've got a couple rigged with wire, but not many.
Well, yeah, I usually don't. I was just pretty much using this one as for this lure here. You know, the island lure is a great little lure. You can put that on mono as well. That one just happens to be rigged up on wire. But if you're cruising along, you know, at 6 or 8 knots again, even without a ballyhoo in it, a lot of guys like to put those ballyhoo in there. That'll still work without a ballyhoo.
Gotcha.
And then you have stuff like the old cedar plug, which, you know, you can't really go wrong with a cedar plug. You know, on 40, 60, or 80-pound ProSpec chrome fluorocarbon, you want to use fluorocarbon when you're targeting tunas.
Okay.
And you want to keep your stuff at least 75 to 100 yards back behind the boat. Sometimes even further. If you can't get a bite, just keep easing it back. Because again, sometimes it's hard to get a bite if the tunas have been getting slammed. Now, if you're seeing great big tunas out there, anything that'll look like a flying fish, if you see them eating flying fish, and the tuna you're seeing are 80 to 100 pounders, you can use regular marlin lures or a bullet lure. You know, that'll stay under the surface of the water, even at high speeds. And tunas love to eat those things as well.
This looks interesting.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite lures, the Moldcraft needlefish. You know, you can trim these skirts down if you want to, but if you put 2 5/0 hooks, these little HD hooks in there, a fish can't swim near that thing without getting hooked. You know, tuna fish. I've caught striped marlin on those things. They stay in the water and they make a really good thing.
And
the Berkley Magic Swimmer.
Swimmers work too.
Really good. Just change the hooks out on them if you're chasing bigger.
Key is size. Keep your bait or your lure the size of the fish
that they're eating.
Yeah. And you should do okay.
Many ways to catch them in so little time. But you know what? It looks like the lower coast region is shaping up to be a black drum and trout kind of weekend. But if Captain Chad Kinney has his way, we might just see some snapper or even a yellowfin make a surprise appearance. What's going on, Chad?
I tell you what, I was just listening to Dave there, and everything he said is spot on. We're going to be talking about yellowfin at the end of my deal here today, and I'm excited about getting out there, especially here in April. You might even get some bluefin. But talking about the inshore stuff first here, we got a good weekend coming up weather-wise. Got a good weather window for going offshore and inshore, so definitely get out on the water. Inshore, we're talking about some black drum. We don't talk about them a lot, but I'm just talking about them because they've been really thick in the land cut, and trout fishing has been really, really good. Still in 3 to 5 foot of water along the grass beds and sand pockets still. But if you head to the land cut, if you're coming from Corpus, head on south. If you're coming from Port Mansfield or anything else, just head up to the land cut there. Right along the ICW, it's been really good for some black drum. Fish the ICW and fish those guts that kind of going through the oil channels and stuff like that. Fresh dead shrimp, is pretty much the go-to on this one. If you can, just rig it with the Carolina rig on the bottom. Just power pole right down on the edge of the drop-off there, and just pitch your bait right off the edge of those grass beds and the drop-offs. And as far as tackle, what we're doing, we're using a Penn spin fisher, a spinning rod. So I'll do spin fisher or battles or whatever one you like with the pins. The 2,500 to 3,000 size works really, really good for this stuff. I've been spooling up with Berkley Chrome with the 30-pound braid. That gives you plenty of power to get these fish into the boat. There's plenty of good fish right now currently out there, but I'd definitely get up to them before they move on out, because they will be moving out real quick, kind of like the sheephead we talked about last week with the jetties. It'll be over with pretty quick, so get to the land cut and try it. Talking about trout fishing, it's still been good in that 3 to 5 foot of water around the grass beds and sand pockets. I've been I just got them in last week, but the Berkley Gulp, it's a Nemesis prawn curl tail, which it's called ocean shifting color. This thing's 4 to 5 inch. I make a 4 inch and a 5 inch, but I never seen a gulp swim this good in the water. And I tried it the other day and went through 2 packs really quick. We put an 1/8 ounce jig on it. Works great in the grass pockets. The fish are just hammering them. Like I said, they swim really, really good. The trout been doing really good on them. So basically just drift over those deeper grass beds. Or if you're in some waist deep water and you like to wade, then definitely get out there and wade. There's plenty of slot size fish out there with some oversized in the mix. Remember, 3 per person, 15 to 20 inch slot size, and of course practice catching and release for the fishery down here.
Got a picture of a really nice trout Logan Hester caught, 28.5 inches, out of Captain Reuben Garza out of Getaway Lodge. So
Nice.
moving over to offshore, the winds, in the springtime can be really, really good, or they can be really windy. So when it's good, get out there and get some state water snapper fishing. It's been really good. And then head out to the floater rigs. Like Dave was talking about, it's epic out there, and I'm going to be heading out there. Yellowfin tuna bites are really, really on. State water snapper fishing, it's been good. You got to really get conditions favorable, and especially when the currents out there, you got to check on that when you get out there and recognize it. Fish have been holding in 50, 90 foot of water. On these better days, they've been suspended in the water when you get some better watercolor and currents lighten up. We've been using some Savage squish jigs and then hitting the middle of the water column and just hammering them on that. If you're looking for the better fish, that's the way to do it. If we're using some bait with heavier currents and stuff, and we're using some sardines, squid on double rigs right on the bottom, especially when those currents get higher. And talking about Rodan, if you're running the center consoles, guys, up to the mid 30-foot range, you get a Rodan trolling motor. You don't have to anchor out there now. You just hit anchor lock, and you guys will be on the spot. It's a game changer for that one. So heading out to the floater rigs for some great Yellowfin tuna action. Definitely pick a window on this one, guys, but head up there to the rigs, the drill ships. They're all out there right now. I throw some Savage Max sticks on the flat lines, and I'll go do some squid chains or cedar plugs on the riggers. And then during the night, we switch over to jigging. And also we get ready for some topwater action using a Penn spinning reel, 65 to 8,500 in sides, spool it up with some 65-pound Berkeley braid, and we'll put a Savage popper on the thing. It's just an epic way to watch these yellowfin just blast and blow them up. And we're currently offering 1 to 2 night stays, 3-day stuff on a custom 70-foot we got on the Bam Bam charter. So we've been running those trips. We'll be doing it all year round. So got a picture here of one of the clients caught it on topwater and a nice yellowfin there.
Oh.
That's a beauty. Well, thanks a lot, Chad. We appreciate the hot spots for the lower coast region are up next. And Chad says you guys and gals need to get out there.
Inshore.
The land cuts on the inshore side. Fish the drop-offs with the black drum, and the trout remain good in 3 to 5 feet of water over the beds and the sand pockets. And then offshore, state water snapper in 50 to 90. And then head out to those floater rigs to catch some of those yellowfin tuna like that one Bree just had. That was a monster, Bree.
That was a good time. That was at Casa Vieja Lodge in Guatemala. That was amazing. I will never forget that moment. All right, but it's time to grab a snack and maybe check your tackle. We'll be right back with your Upper Fresh and Heroes on the Water Lower Fresh region. Stay tuned.
The Texas Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Bass Assassin and Saltwater Assassin, the best lures, period. Berkeley, your fish, our science. Murphy's Law Sport Fishing. Book your trip today at murphyslawsportfishing.com. Abyss Battery. Power your pursuit. Rodan. Set it, forget it, catch more fish. Berkeley Pro Spec Chrome. And Penn. Let the battle begin.
Welcome back. With Jim, as you know, Yamaha is always at the top of their game, and Captain Rick is always filled with wisdom. So let's hear what the two of them are bestowing upon us this week.
Let's check it out.
Hey guys, Captain Rick Murphy here, and I want to tell you about some of the cool features that Helmaster has to offer. Now, Helmaster has been around a little while, but guess what? As I've gotten this 36 Front Runner, the one thing we did is we paired it up with the new 350s, and what really I love about this feature is, as you can see, I'm holding into the wind. I'm not touching anything. I got Chase and Mikey back here and Ridge, and they're putting baits on, and guess what? There's not all this steer in the boat trying to hold it into the wind. Now, when it's really blowing hard, like right now, it's blowing 15 to 18 miles an hour, I might have to adjust the speed just a little bit. The key here is hands-free. If you're a single charter captain and you got twin outboards, you can put Helmaster on your boat, and guess what? You can go back there, put your kite out one at a time, you can put your baits on, and guess what? It's sitting there holding exactly where I want it to do. Now, if I want to turn the boat a little right or a little left, all I got to do is push the button to go left or right. The other part that I like, on the electronic throttles, I can add or subtract RPMs by simply bumping the side here, up or down, 750, or I can push it down. Now, each time I bump that button, it's 50 RPMs. Beautiful. I can fish on this thing all day long as it's holding me into the wind. Remember that Helmaster has a lot of different features. It has a joystick when docking and a lot of other things that you can do with it. If you have any questions about any Yamaha product, you can go to YamahaOutboards.com or you can go to your local Yamaha outboard dealer.
And there you have it. Not rough at all, but Yamaha's got everything for everything.
Well,
You know that.
Yamahas. Love
All
it.
right, this week in the Upper Fresh region, Lake Fork takes center stage as Mike McFarland reports a full spawn and rising water levels. Lake Bodark is red hot with bass, crushing soft plastics, while Ray Hubbard and Athens are holding strong with shallow bites, and spawning activity is heating up. Mike, please give us more details. I know you have them.
Absolutely. We unfortunately did get hammered with some of the storms. One of my friend's house got hit by a tornado, but no, everybody's okay, and it passes on. So, but the bass fishing, let's start with this time with Ray Hubbard. Joe Shipley, he talks about the shallow bites really good. The bass are staging to spawn. Texas Free Creature Bait, the slobber knocker chatterbait, frogs, all that stuff's working really good by fishing shallow areas around grass and reeds and any riprap or hard rock that you can find. Bodark, moving to Bodark, that is one of the hottest lakes that I think Texas has seen in many years. It's as good as it gets. From bed fishing to just simply running banks and shorelines with Texas Rig Berkeley Max Scent creature baits and worms, that's all you need. Grab a bag of Max Scent creature baits and go fishing. Natural colors are my favorites, like green pumpkins, watermelon candy. But honestly, I mean, June bug is, a personal favorite. Just go fishing at this lake. These Lone Star bass are hungry, growing fast, and they're spawning. Moving to Athens with Jay Bonner. Lake is full pool. It's 65, 68. We are finding that the forward imaging around docks, brush piles, and grass lines with the Berkeley Stunna jerkbait is still producing bigger bites. Those females are staged on those docks. For the spawning bedfish, use the Berkeley Max Scent bait. And again, and natural colors are my favorite. But the key I'll tell you when you're bed fishing is use a 4.0 flipping hook. I mean, a 4-aught is what I mean with a 4-aught. And 20-pound Berkeley Vanish fluorocarbon. You'll get more bites. Moving to Fork. Fork was really on fire with a lot of big fish being caught, and we're still catching big fish, but the overpool from the rain is tough. It's really made the lake about 7-8 inches overpool, and they're now dropping that water. So the rising water and then falling water is hard on the fish, but the bass are in full spawn mode. We expect that it should settle out very soon. And basically when this happens, the water gets a little dirty and stirred up, I go to noisy baits. Once that water settles, I'll go back to bed fishing and things, but buzz baits, spinner baits, and the Berkeley slobber knocker in like a sungill or an orange, dark, bright color like that can really catch those big fish still. Here's some really good pics of just average Lake Fork bass right here. Love seeing these happy customers. This young man was just ecstatic to catch that big fish. And then this second picture was a personal bass.
Very nice personal best.
All smiles.
Well, tell us about the crappie.
Crappie from Jackie Wiggins. Lake Fork crappie has been super up and down, just like the weather. And really, crappie are a lot like bass. So the fish are moving in, moving out. They're in 5 foot of water one day, then the next day they're gone. It's really been the same with them on the timber or the brush piles or the bridges. You just got to keep looking for them if you're not on them. The good thing is when you find them, they're still filling limits very easily, generally going to the minnows when the fishing is tough. But they're starting to really, find fish literally from 2 to 40 foot. If they're shallow, they're trying to spawn. If they're deep, they're staging. And they are finding more aggressive bite. And I believe as we settle from these storms, this coming week is going to be on fire for Lake Fork. Next week, you're going to see Lake Fork be the hot spot for bass and crappie. But look at this table of crappie. I've never seen one bigger, even under tougher conditions.
Half of them look like bass are so big.
It's crazy how big they are and how many there are. I know there's a lot of fishermen there, but man, that is a mess of crappie. Someone's tired from cleaning fish.
And a lot of mouths to feed. All right, let's move on.
Yeah. Let's go to stripers, hybrids. Tawakoni is starting to get better. It's overpool as well, but the hybrids and stripers are coming around. It was slow one day, then turn on the next. Look for the birds offshore, catching most of the fish on big slab spoons. And then Levon, Kerry Thorne and Levon, he loves this time of year because the white bass will run up these creeks and streams, and you can really catch a lot of white bass in a hurry. And really, if you like to eat them, they're delicious. They fill their limits and fill their freezers. And so basically between Tawakoni and Levon, these two pics I'm going to share are the big hybrids from Tawakoni. And then the really neat picture of Kerry Levon's client holding this rack of white bass. So if that's not great fishing in the upper fresh region, everything's spawning. Come on, fish with us. And thank you guys so much for being here.
And he says next week the fishing's going to turn on. Thanks a lot, Mike. We appreciate that. I'll take your hot spots for the upper fresh region from here. Captain Mike says,
Boat Arc.
Boat Arc takes the hot seat this week. Anglers are doing some of the very best bass fishing they've had all year. Berkley Max Scent soft baits and all types, and catching huge numbers on the Texas Lone Star those Texas Lone Star bass. And they are hungry and they are ready to spawn. And that is a good combination. Hungry fish are my favorite.
Yes, it's always a good combo. All right, this week on the Heroes on the Water lower fresh region, Matt Reed says the bass bite is on fire at Falcon and Fayette with white bass stacked at Somerville and Falcon. Take it away, Matt.
All right, Bree, let's kick this thing off. Always going to start off with my baby. Falcon Lake bass fishing's been off the charts lately. Great numbers with a bunch of big ones. As far south as I am, the transition to early summer pattern is definitely underway. You can still catch some on the Berkley Dime 6 on the rock points. Blueback Chartreuse is the best color. But the Dime 10 is definitely picking up steam out a little bit deeper on the rock shelves itself. The shaky head bite in 10 to 12 feet of water has just exploded. The Green Pumpkin General is a perfect plastic choice. Come on down and get in on the action. Greg Boyd sent me a report from Fayette County. It's been good the past week. The big fish, there's a lot of big fish shallow with others moving out deep. Green Pumpkin fluke stick baits and lipless crankbaits around the grass and edges of the reeds are doing really well. Carolina rigs and heavy shaky heads, with the generals on them and 10 to 20 feet of water off the points and roadbed has been the sure bet for those bigger offshore fish. Lake Somerville, the bass are definitely spawning. Largemouth is shallow around the rocks and on the sandy banks with spinner baits and shallow crankbaits. Brian Cotter sent me reports from several lakes around the Austin area. Lake Travis is fishing great. The fish have moved up on beds, mostly males, but there's definitely some females locked up on those nests with the males. They'll be coming for a good while now. If you're not fishing the coves and cuts for the spawning fish, there's a lot of bass out on the grass flats down lake. Work worms and creature baits and small swim baits in those areas to catch those fish. If you want to fish a little deeper, work a jig out on those little bit deeper drops for some really big bites. LBJ is fishing good. Work flats and drop-offs out from the bank a little bit to get those bigger bites, throwing creature baits and lizards. Also, skipping docks with jigs and Texas rig plastics has been a great way to catch some. Another pattern, a shallow crankbait around rocks, around those shallow rock piles will get bites also. Inks Lake's fishing well, fishing docks by skipping and flipping Texas rigs up under them as far as you can get is a great pattern. Also throwing Alabama rigs or crankbaits around the deeper docks. Or honestly, the rock piles in 3 to 8 feet of water have been the best way to catch your big ones down there right now. Got 4 pictures. Every one of these are Falcon Lake fish from this week. Started off with a picture of myself holding a little one, and I got Jeffrey, Grant, and Eduardo, all with big old Falcon specials. We have caught so many lately. It's just been amazing.
Oh, music to my ears. I love it.
Yeah, just big fish. Well, tell us about the white bass and the hybrids there.
All right, so Lake Somerville white bass and hybrids are very good on slabs and small swim baits in 6 to 12 foot of water off the points and also around the dam. Falcon Lake white bass are back on the main lake rock points chasing shad. A Berkley Jack lipless crankbait and shad patterns will lead to easy limits. Grab the kids and then come experience some smiles. Those white bass were a perfect target for that.
Well, thanks, Matt. That was a fantastic report. Giant pictures of giant bass. We appreciate that. I'll take your lower fresh region hot spots from here. Matt says, Falcon Lake, the bass bite is amazing. Rock points with Berkley Dime crankbaits and shaky heads tipped with 5 or 6 inch generals have been money in the bank.
Money in the bank. Oh man, I am loving it. Well, now it's time for, Jim, this is a little new, for Seize the Social, where we show off your big catches, Texas vibes, and all-out fishing fun from all across social media, from the coast to the creeks. Here's what we've reeled in this week. Okay, what do you think's gonna happen, Jim? That's a big.
First of all, I don't get out of the boat, so.
Okay, wait, but look, it's in slow-mo now.
I know.
Is he
it's
gonna?
crazy.
Look at. He's in the shark's mouth.
That was just a little kiss. Just a little kiss. That's
No.
all. If he
No.
wanted to eat him, I'm telling you, Bree, that dude would be toast.
I
That's why I stay in the
understand.
boat. I cannot outswim that thing. There's no. I stay in the boat.
Freaking
I'm
stay in the
sorry.
boat. I'm
I
not
stay in
getting
the
out.
boat.
Why
Things
don't you-
like that live in the. There's that, and then there's like the Kraken, and I mean, forget it. I'm in the boat.
Kraken.
I'm staying in the skeeter.
We
I'm
know
staying.
where Jim will be. All right, you got a reel that made you laugh or want to grab a rod or stay in the boat? Send us your favorite fishing videos and you might see them right here on Seize the Social. To submit, scan the QR code or drop them in our DMs. All right, coming up, your Upper Coast Region report, but first we're heading to the Parts View workbench with Dave Farrell to check out some new products. Dave, what's good over there?
Yeah, I got these really new cool bahillas. I like these.
Ooh,
Yeah, they're called the Greenland. They're almost like a pair of goggles,
you're such a model. We'll be back.
aren't I?
The Texas Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Abu Garcia, Fish to Win, Fenwick, Feel Everything, Berkeley Pro Spec Chrome, Heroes on the Water, Paddle, Fish, Heel. Turn on the bite anytime. Tie on a Mirrolure. Front Runner Boats, performance-built offshore fishing boats made in the USA. And Startron, start, run, and store with Startron.
Today's Power Pole tip of the week is about the Power Pole Charge. And you know, the reason why I love this battery charger so much is it's 4 systems in one. Remember this, it's very lightweight, the lightest charger that I know of, with it being 8 pounds. The other thing that I love about it is I have the ability now to charge my batteries when I'm running back to the boat ramp after using them all day long. So certainly that's something that I like. But also a third feature that is really one of my favorites is I have the ability to transfer the charging from the engine to the trolling motor batteries, and I can charge that way. Or if I need to charge up my engine battery, I can simply slide through the app and make all that power go towards that engine battery. So I have the choices when it comes to being able to what I'm going to charge. And the fourth reason I really love it is because of the emergency start feature. I have the ability to click on the emergency start feature, use the battery juice that I have stored, and guess what? Jump that battery so that I can get home from being 20 miles out in the Gulf. If you have any questions about the Power Pole Charge, simply go to powerpole.com, and that's today's Power Pole tip of the week.
Hey guys, we're at Taco Marine at the Parts View workbench here, trolling that edge. But I tell you what,
Yeah.
it looks like we're going to be trolling a little bit like a Spartina grass edge or some kind of an oyster edge.
Maybe.
Looking at some of these baits you've got here,
Well,
Dave.
first off, we're going to start with the Bahio Greenland there. This is a part of their tech collection. It's probably the most technical frame that they've ever made to date. And, you know, the Greenland has a large fit to it. So, and the flex, and it's got the flex arms on it so that they, you know, you can bend them back pretty good and they won't break. The flex
Very
hinges,
comfortable.
and they have it has a built-in sun edge on there. So at the top and the bottom, it's an edge that just kind of hugs your face and keeps the sun from getting inside there. It has little slots in it to let the air in, but will keep the sun out as well. It's a bio-based nylon frame. It's super light, very comfortable. It's got keeper holes at the end, so you can put whatever kind of keeper you want on it. And you know, that wide frame gives you really good peripheral vision as well. Comes in 3 different colors, that frame: a gray, a green, and a matte. And 7 lens colors, all the really nice Bahio, you know, mirrors.
The nice
and
thing about it
everything.
is you can pick the color lens that you need for the day,
Correct.
or during the part of the day that you have. Yellow in the morning, maybe you're fishing flats, go for some, that copper, or then later in the day, you sometimes, even on the flats, you can go to a gray base and still, it allows you to.
If you want to buy several different ones.
Yeah, you can cut the amount of light you need to cut. That's the nice thing about it, all in the same frame design.
Yeah, BahiosSunglasses.com to get those new Greenlands. Next, we have the Berkley Power Bait Stank Bug Max Scent. This is a nice creature bait. It's got a compact profile for a creature bait for, when you're wanting to use something a little bit smaller presentation-wise. It's got a moderate action. Those claws on there activate just enough. You can take one out.
Let me pop it open and see what we got.
Yeah, hopefully it won't be one of those ones where I can't ever open.
Yeah, it takes a minute, but I can get it. It takes a
they
minute, but I can get it.
Activate, the little claws really move really well. And that Max Scent distribution tech activates. That smell really gets out there.
You can definitely smell it, that's for sure.
And it keeps the fish coming to it, and it also has a nice taste. When they grab that, they hang on to it.
I'll let Ricky do that.
Yeah, I'm not going to do it. 8-count pack, and they're 3.5 inches long. So, BerkleyFishing.com to get that power bait.
Gotcha. Well, what else have we got?
The Stank Bug. I like the name. Next, we have the Savage Gear Rev Mag Walker. Now, this is a unique reverse weight transfer system inside there. So there's a magnet, and when you whip it, that magnet in there works its way to the forward end when it lands, so that it keeps it maintain that lure's balance when it goes in the water. It always lands flat and doesn't sink real deep, like another one. So you can fish that in really shallow grass. It's got strong corrosion-resistant hooks. It's made for salt water, and it's got a great walking action. The way that body is made, you really don't have to be an expert at walking the dog to make it do it.
And comes in a bunch of different colors.
10 different colors. It's 3.75 inch or a 4.75 inch. They're really, just really good topwater. I love topwater fishing.
Finger mullet or just slightly larger than average size finger mullet.
Correct.
And those are the two that your inshore species in particular are going to target. I know when I'm chasing trout and redfish, I always look at the bait size, kind of like what we talked about in the tuna segment.
Right.
I always try to match the hatch with the size lure that I'm throwing because I just simply get more bites.
Yeah, these are really nice. And the way that they're shaped, like I said, anybody can pick this up and get it walking pretty quickly.
Sticky sharp hooks. Sticky sharp.
SavageGear.com to find those. Next, we have these. These are from Knockin' Tails. Knockin' Tails, this is called their Knockin' Cork. This is brand new. They haven't even come out yet. It's a durable, hard plastic construction. Same material that, a hard plastic lure is made out of in a cork, in a popping cork. So once you buy one of those things, you're never going to have to buy another one again, probably. Stainless steel eyes in there, really loud rattle, and that really deep cupped face makes the sound of a fish, eating on the surface. You put a nice gulp shrimp underneath that thing, and it's going to crush. Cast extremely well because of the way it's made.
They feel like they're weighted. They feel robust.
Yeah,
they feel relatively beefy.
Yeah,
because
it's not a cork.
To try one of these.
Yeah, it's not a cork. And when you cast this, you'll be casting the cork instead of the jig head or whatever.
Gotcha.
2 bright colors so far. They're hoping to have 4 colors later this year. So, KnockinTailLures.com.
You know what's going to happen? Guys are going to end up putting split rings and treble hooks on the back of these and just using that for a topwater plug.
I imagine a redfish would eat it for sure.
I'm sure they would. Well, Dave, great job over here
at
the New Products Workbench as well. But Bree, where are we going to go next? Let's check out what's going on.
All right, Jim. Well, last but not least, we're headed into the Upper Coast region with our newest member on board, Captain Mickey Eastman, who's giving us some great options to reel in this weekend. Close us on out, Mickey.
Hello, Bree, Jim, and Dave. How's it going? Yeah, let's get started with Galveston Bay inshore, speckled trout. Trinity Bay has still been fair to good along the east shoreline for trout in 2 to 5 feet of water over shell bottom, points, and drains. Shad Assassins, Little Johns, and Soft Dines. Working best, look for slicks, baitfish, and streaking water. And the north shoreline of Trinity up near the spillway is good for specks on the flats at about 2 to 4 feet of water. And East Galveston Bay is holding good numbers of specks along the south shoreline between Stingray Cut and Elm Grove Point. Pepper Point reefs, they've been holding fair numbers of slot-sized trout. In the North Shoreline, it's been fair behind cold fronts. Face Dust, Little Johns, Laguna Shrimp, Bass Assassins, best bet to throw, water temp 72, and clarity is good. The back bays up the ship channel, they're holding good trout over shell and drop-offs in 2 to 4 feet of water on Little Johns and Saltwater Assassins. Water clarity is good and 72 degrees. And moving over to Sabine Lake, shallow flats along the east shoreline of the Louisiana side has been good on pearl bass assassins and paddle tail swim baits with a light jig head. Best bites on outgoing tide near drains, points, and mud shell mixed bottom. Water clarity is marginal with winds with that freshwater inflow over there. And the lower channel at Sabine Pass, it's holding fair numbers of trout on shell ledges from 2 to 8 feet. Water temp 73. And moving, our photo of the week is Captain Rihanna Dela Cruz for the trout photo. And redfish, Galveston jetties still hot. North and south have been good for redfish on knocker rigs with crab and shrimp tight to the rocks, live shrimp, bass assassin paddle tails, and lipless crankbaits in red colors has been the best bet. Incoming tide, with team and finger mullet, that's your best pattern. Water temp 73 degrees in the upper bay rock growings with the distinct drop-offs. They're producing good slot redfish on crankbaits and spinner baits. The back lakes and bayous, they've been the best bet for slot reds. With these bull tides, we've been getting ahead of these cold fronts. Salt plastic spoons and live shrimp under a popping cork, working really good. And Sabine Lake red fishing has been fair to good depending on conditions. Best area has been the lower channel along the shell drop-offs with salt plastics and live shrimp. And fish them deep along the ledges near the bottom for your best bet. And east shoreline from Madam Johnson Bayou to Blue Buck Point, those reds are holding about 2 to 4 feet of water for slot redfish, and bass assassins and gulp shrimp. They're working really good around drains and points. And when the tides are bulled up, the back lakes and marsh ponds are really good too. Sabine jetties, they've been fair depending on the winds. If the conditions are favorable, it's been good. Redfish photo of the week, David Trevino. And getting offshore, we're still experiencing a lot of heavy seas over here, so along the beachfront near passes like Sabine Pass, Galveston jetties, and San Luis Pass have been producing good numbers of bull redfish. And best bet's been on crab, mullet, and shad on the Carolina rigs with circle hooks. 10 to 20 feet of water is best when conditions prevail. Surf temperature is 70 degrees. And shark species, that's going on big time over here along the beachfront and the passes. They're entering the bay system right now, and all the baits are working for these sharks as they stage up. Mullet and shad are the best bet for success. And offshore captains over here are waiting on a good weather stretch to get offshore so they can target their species like swordfish, wahoo, and kingfish. So that pretty much wraps up the upper coast. We've been experiencing some high winds, but fishing's pretty good if you like to wade fish. Get out of the wind and junk a lure.
Hey, Mickey, you were talking about those upper bay rock groins and some of the baits that you're catching around there. And you were talking about noise-making type baits. Is the water dirtier up there? Because it seems like it's still kind of clean in some of the other areas.
No, it's not. These redfish, they've been kind of lethargic on us, and we're having to make them mad with rattling baits. Even a rattle trap will work for some, but you get hung up too much in the rocks. So spinner baits and some noise-making topwaters have been working pretty good also.
Okay, so it's just a matter of you're just trying to entice those fish to come up there and strike something, and a little bit of noise is helping you get that done.
Yeah, and we're just putting the trolling motor down and working down those ledges where the rocks come off the spoils, and then you got the distinct drop-off for a ledge, and we're just covering a lot of water. That's why we throw those baits to cover a lot of water real quick to get bites.
Gotcha. Well, it sounds like you've got it all covered up that way. I like the water temperature and clarity that he's giving in each of those reports so that you know what you're to expect when you get there. That's a fantastic tip.
Yeah, and what to bring.
Thanks a lot, Mickey. We appreciate it. We're going to take your upper coast hotspots for the hotspots for the upper coast region from here. Mickey says wade fishing West Galveston Bay for speckled trout and reds, and Galveston jetties have multiple species of fish. Water conditions are pretty darn favorable too, so that's all great news to hear.
That is good news. And we finished all of our reports. We made it. Jim, you did a great job.
Thank you.
I just saw recently it happened. OH Ivy, which is a lake we talk about all the time with Matt Loescher. Did you see that? 16.39 pound bass, 20th largest in Texas history. The largest was 18.18 in 1992. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Congratulations to Cully Bevel on that.
Good job, Cully.
That's a big deal. Thanks, Jim.
I appreciate it.
So good to have you here. Good job, Dave.
I'm jelly.
See y'all next week. Bye.